This is the Max Yao Leadership Podcast.
My father actually died as a war hero in Vietnam. And my father died at age 19. And it wasn't really until about 10 years ago I ever admitted this, because it was something that was devastating to me. But since my father literally died on a battlefield and actually saved his platoon, I couldn't use any excuses not to go all out, because honestly, Max, I didn't think that I deserved to be alive after 19, because Zanzibar is a beautiful island that actually lies in the Indian Ocean, and it's on the east coast of Africa, and it is adjacent to Tanzania. So here's what Zanzibar offers people. Zanzibar is only a 20-minute flight to Mount Kilimanjaro, the largest peak in Africa. Zanzibar is only a 25-minute flight to the Serengeti, the most beautiful wildlife destination on the planet, and Zanzibar is only an hour flight to Kenya, Nairobi, one of the mega cities booming in the whole world, and it's a 5-hour flight to Dubai, and Dubai runs the authority airports in Zanzibar. So having done all my research, Max, I'm excited, because here's what I always tell my children. 3 things. First,
Welcome to the Max Yao Leadership Podcast. My guest today is DJ the Money Coach, CEO and founder of DJ the Money Coach. DJ is joining us from Texas, USA. Hi, DJ. Thank you for being with us today.
how you doing today, Maximo? It's my pleasure to be on your amazing show. I don't know what time it is in the UK, but I'm sure you're up late.
Yes, no, it's a really pleasure to have you, and I look forward to this conversation and all the great work that you are doing. And our audience is primarily corporate executives and entrepreneurs, and I think your story is a very captivating one that everybody needs to hear about. So really grateful to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, hopefully we don't let them down.
So why don't we start then? What can you tell us about your background, and how was it like where you grew up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up in a middle-class family, like most Americans. Had parents who strive to give us the best education, the best housing situation, and the best opportunity to maximize our gifts as a child. Now, I did have an opportunity to play sports while I was in high school and middle school, and actually played sports briefly in college. So just to give a quick short story about my backdrop, I had actually played baseball in college for a year and a half. I partied my way out of my first college, and enjoyed everything about it. I wouldn't change anything for it, because I got a great lesson out of it. My parents actually kicked me out of the house at 19 because I partied my way out of my first college, and that was a fun experience. But I have a background just like you. I have a background in accounting. I, at one point in time, was the president of a startup accounting technology practice with Maury and Schoenfeld on the Gold Coast of Chicago, Illinois. And the thing that got me started into my profession, that got me on the pathway to being DJ the Money Coach, actually was when I actually went out to buy my first house. Having worked in corporate America at the time, Max, I actually got turned down for a mortgage. And I was kind of, caught off guard by it, because I was making good professional income, and I thought that I had money in the bank, which I did. But the reality was, Max, I knew nothing about credit, personal credit. I knew about business credit because I was doing, general ledgers and things of that nature, and P&Ls for the company I was working for. But I was clueless about personal finances. And that's kind of crazy to say, that having an accounting background, but I knew nothing about personal finances. So
Yeah.
I got turned down for a mortgage, and that caught me off guard. But the thing that really hit me the hardest was about a few years later, I actually got into business for myself, and then I got turned down for a business loan, albeit I had 6 figures in the bank with the institution that I had been banking with for at least 10 years. And at that point, that was debilitating. And I actually almost, decided to quit. And I just asked the person, I said, how can it be that you're turning me down when I have significant amount of money in this account? My business is doing well. And the guy just looked across the table with me as an underwriter. He said, hey, you know what? Do you know what your personal credit score is? I said, no, I don't. He said, your personal credit score is 525. And he said, right now it shows you have $60,000 worth of personal debt. And I was like, wow, really? He said, yeah. So even though you have 6 figures in the bank with us and your business is thriving, we can't underwrite a loan for you. At that point in time, Max, I said, okay, I got 2 options here. I can quit or I can find out how to get out of this situation. So at the time, I was a big public station, follower, PBS, big in America, big in the UK. And there was a lady named Susie Orman, and she's from Chicago like myself. She was a major financier, and she had been doing these series on PBS about personal finance. So she had a book called The Road to Wealth. And regardless of what people may think about her today, I took a grocery store effect about how she can help me. I went into her grocery store and I just studied personal financing, and I read the chapter, which was a thick, 50, 60, 70 page chapter. And it broke down a quadrant of 5 ways that personal credit works. And instead of filing for bankruptcy, which at the time most people would, I actually took responsibility. And this is in the analog days. So I'm going to date myself a little bit. This is in the, late 90s. And I went to the library, got the information that she provided because the internet is not even a thing. So I took my personal credit score from 525 in 12 months to 700. And in 5 years, I paid off all of my personal debt and I got myself back on the right track. And at that point, I had an aha moment. And I said, wait a minute, I'm a professional. I wonder if other professionals are having similar challenges. And so we were going to church, and we had a program come through our church called Focus on the Family, which was actually a program about finances, but it was an 8-week program, and it took 2 to 3 hours every Sunday. And what I noticed in our church, about only 15% of the professionals that attended that 8-week program actually finished the course because it was just too long and it was too late to get, it into the system. So at that point, I saw a show on 2020 with the late Barbara Walters, and she had interviewed about 10 professionals, lawyers, doctors, engineers, accountants, and the subject was personal finances. And right there, each one of the people she interviewed, they had 60, 70, 100, $150,000 worth of personal finance debt. And that point, I didn't look at it as a me problem. I looked at it as a universal problem. And then I said, wait a minute, Focus on the Family brought this great program through my church, but it was 8 weeks. I said, what if I could take that program and condense it into 3 hours and make it lively, entertaining, and make it resonate with the people? Would that be something worth winning? And I actually found the professional business class solution to financial literacy. And I got myself out of debt. And in 2002, I ended up getting debt free. And 6 years later, I became an identified 7-figure net worth person making over $250,000 in real estate business. And I never looked back from there. But it took me 5 years to get out of debt. It took me another 3 to establish myself. And then I started teaching personal literacy courses in my church. I created a program called Family Finance 101. And I also created a religious-based program called Faith, Love, and Money. And I started sharing that throughout Chicagoland, which is where I'm from originally. And then it took hold. The YMCA took on it. And then I had some other major churches. And then I got onto the government side, and it just exploded. So that's a quick backdrop on who I was in the past and how I got to building where I am today.
That's really inspirational, and I think there's a lot to pick on here. It seems to me like you are this type of person. You were facing challenges, but you did not give up. You found a solution, and when you found it, you went out to try to spread the word and share it with others. What would you say in your earlier life, or what has been a defining moment in your life that made you be that kind of leader, that shaped you in becoming the person who will not give up, and even when you found a solution, you are eager to share it with everybody?
Well, for a long period of time, my father actually died as a war hero in Vietnam. And my father died at age 19. And it wasn't really until about 10 years ago I ever admitted this, because it was something that was devastating to me. But since my father literally died on a battlefield and actually saved his platoon, I couldn't use any excuses not to go all out, because honestly, Max, I didn't think that I deserved to be alive after 19, because my father had literally died at 19 saving his platoon. My father died September 16th, 1968, literally got blown up on a battlefield protecting his platoon in the Vietnam War. So every time I had a challenge and I wanted to have a pity party, all I would do is look at what my dad did in order to provide me with freedom. So I really couldn't use that as an out or an excuse, because I knew my dad's life would be in vain, because my dad only had one child. I'm my father's only child. So that pressure made me push ahead even when I felt bad and I felt pity for myself, because I said, wow, my dad volunteered to go to Vietnam because his older brother was drafted. And I said, what right do I have to tap out when my dad gave it all for me to actually even have an existence to experience what freedom is really about?
That's it all makes sense, right? What you're explaining this way, and we can see the link and the inspiration and how that played up on your mindset. What about becoming an entrepreneur? When did you first realize that that's the path that you wanted to take? Because you started, have you ever worked in the corporate world, and when that transition happened, and how did you identify that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think we were talking off screen when we first met. And the first aha moment I had there is when I got kicked out of college. I got fortunate enough, because I was a very, gifted person. I got hired at a place called Sears Technology Services, which most people only know Sears as a retail store. They actually were in the technology business. So I was fortunate enough to get hired at their technology company, and I was put in control of their supply room. And at that time, DOS was big before it became 3.1 and Windows 95. But since I knew how the technology worked, I converted over their supply room over to technology, and I made it where I could actually start getting into the computer field, because that was huge, computer science. So I'm doing all the supply room and the data stuff for 1,000 employees at Sears Technology Services. And I'm doing this for about 2 years, and I'm doing it very well. And then one day I look up, the vice president of the company, I remember his name like it was yesterday. His name was Ed White. His daughter graduated from college, and they gave her a job in the computer department, which I was trying to get promoted into, even though I was doing the work. So they told me I had to train her, and she was getting paid twice as much as I was getting paid. And right there, I said, wait a minute, you want me to train her because she has a college degree, but she knows nothing about this business, and she's getting paid twice as much as I am, and I'm doing the work? So right there at 21, I said, nah, we're not doing this. So I went to my boss, because I didn't report to Ed White. I reported to a gentleman named George Dewey. That's how sharp the memory is when you get a real learning lesson in life. So I go to George Dewey and I said, George, I said, I have been put in for this promotion to get into the computer room. And actually, I've been saying I want to go back to school. Can you guys subsidize my school? And you turn me down, but now you want me to train this man's daughter, and she knows nothing about the business, and she's making twice as much as I make. I said, so guess what, George? I am resigning. Here's my 2 weeks notice. And I took that and I went and worked in a factory, and I got back into a school at Columbia, and I didn't look back. And I ended up working 2 jobs and put myself back in school. And I looked at it as, wow, I'm doing the job. This person, because of their parent, and they got this piece of paper but knows nothing. I'm supposed to train them, get twice as less, and I'm supposed to serve them. So that was the first time that resonated with me. And I said, nope, let me go back to school. Let me get my degree and let me learn about, accounting, what I originally wanted to do. And then after that, after I finished that, role and got that piece of paper, I started working in the software industry as a what they call account senior manager. And I worked for a company called Sistra Software Sales. And I knew nothing about software, but I had a finance background. So I take their company and they're servicing Wall Street, and they have these what they call tough accounts. If you know anything about Wall Street, New York, everybody is, talk loud, they're very rude and everything. So they were not having success selling into this market. So they said, hey, you don't know anything about the software business. And my director, his name was Brian. He said, tell you what I'm going to do, DJ. I'm going to give you an opportunity to turn this, downside opportunity upside, because this is the most profitable one. We have never been able to be successful at it. And since you don't know software, I'm going to teach you how to sell to these people, but you got 90 days. He said, if you can turn this around 90 days, you're going to make more money you can ever shake a stick at. So lo and behold, I'm a baseball player. So I just did exactly what he told me to do. And this is in December of 1996. I take their sales department and I actually exceed their expectations and I break all their records. And I actually end up making $20,000 in 1 month. So January of 1997, Max, we have our new sales kickoff meeting. And now they celebrate me. They give me this plaque. They give me this bonus check for $15,000. And then immediately they said, guess what? We have a new sales quota. So everybody's looking around. Okay, what's the new sales quota? The new sales quota now is $50,000 a month, thanks to DJ. And right there at that moment, now I got a second reality. Wait a minute. I outsold everybody, and now my income is going to be cut in half because now my sales record is the standard, and the company was put in position to be acquired by a company called Vizio. Not the TV guys, but the technology guys. A lot of people don't know that Vizio is a major player on the computer hubs and router side. So they now said, hey, you have shown us that we have been underachieving, and now we're going to cut your pay in half. We're not going to give somebody else, a job twice as much as you make, but we're now going to make your quota your sales record. And that's when I said, enough is enough. I said, wait a minute, I got experience and I prove I can sell. I have a finance background. Here's what I do know. At the young age of 26, I know I could go back into corporate America, but if I don't jump out and bet on myself now, I probably never will. And that's when I took the leap of faith and I started creating my first company, White Glove Immaculate Services, which was a cleaning company.
Wow, that's again a demonstration that take things in your own hands and you go on and create something from scratch. How was that experience, and what did you learn from this first venture with the cleaning company?
I learned that I shouldn't have jumped out so quickly without a parachute. That's the first thing I learned. So here's what I did, Max. I sold my house. I moved from the suburbs of Chicago in a very affluent community because I was doing very well. And I moved into what we would call the urban, part of town, but I call the hood. And I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment. So the only thing I did right, I sold my house and I paid my rent 6 months in advance. And I literally start canvassing the upper Gold Coast of Chicago and the most affluent neighborhoods to do cleaning. And how I got into cleaning is that every year that I was in college, I used to have a janitorial job as I had in high school. And then I had an opportunity in my third year of college to actually work with a guy who started his own cleaning company. And he was making a lot of money, and he had offered me an opportunity to actually partner with him. But I said, nah, I'm going to do the corporate thing. My mom and my dad didn't put me in college to be running a janitorial business, albeit this guy became a millionaire. So as I thought back to it, I said, what is a business I can get into, Max, that didn't require me to have, license, regulations and all that I could get in and not know nothing but do hard work. And I love cleaning because I had OCD. So I jumped in, paid my rent 6 months in advance, and I did not get a client for almost 4 months. And I was working my butt off. And then at that point, while I was doing that, I took a job at a top tier gym on the Gold Coast so I could meet more affluent people, so I could start getting business in their lane where they knew me as a hard worker. So the first thing is, don't jump out without a plan. See, I was so upset at the software company by making my sales records my quota, I immediately jumped out and quit a great job so I could get what I thought was my freedom, but I didn't have a parachute and I didn't have a plan. I was just angry because I didn't want to do twice the work for half the pay on a different side of the coin, versus before somebody who was not experienced got paid twice as much and I had to train them. This is now I was getting paid off my own merits like a sports athlete. But now you tell me I hit the MVP, I knocked it out the park, but you're going to pay me half as less. So I had nowhere to go. So I said, you know what? Let me jump out of here. So the rule I learned there was, don't jump out without a plan. And the second thing is, make sure that you have enough money to take you through the hardship that you would have to go through. But on the opposite side of the coin, Max, I wouldn't change anything because I had to learn that lesson early. And that's the key thing that I try to share with people. If you're going to learn a lesson, learn it early. But the second thing is, get yourself 3 advisors. Here's what I learned 15 years ago, which if I could go back and talk to DJ at 26 or 21, I would say first thing is, get yourself a spiritual advisor so you can have peace. I'm not into religions. Get a spiritual advisor. Make sure that person is emulating the principles of success, not their personality. So you can have an idea of what you really are going after and to please your God. The second thing is, get yourself a business leader. Somebody like John C. Maxwell, the number one foremost leader on leadership, which I've been part of his program for 20 years. And then the third thing is, get yourself a successful business person that can actually show you the minefield and show you how to step outside of the mines. That's the thing that I learned the most from my first endeavor. And those are priceless.
That's a very, very precious advice. And a lot of people listening have this dream and idea of, oh, I'm going to start up my company and then everything will be fine. But yes, sometimes we overlook all these practical challenges ahead. You talked about leadership, and this podcast is about leadership. It's for corporate leaders and business leaders. What was your definition of leadership then, and how has that evolved over the years? And how would you define then leadership today?
Then, when I was younger in my 20s and right around my mid-20s, I thought leadership was just something that was born into you. And I always thought I was a natural born leader because I always did the things that I wanted to do, and I never followed anybody. Albeit I might have had a idea or ambition, or I had this internal drive, but that's not leadership. What I come to learn now, what leadership really is having the capacity to actually do the right things in difficult times, have the ability to actually make other people successful before yourself. As they talk about in the book, Good to Great, there's 5 different levels of leadership. And Jim Collins is one of my favorite other leaders. What I was a leader by position, which is the lowest level of leadership, because that's generally based on intimidation or just because your title, do what I tell you to do. Most people want to follow that for a long period of time. But the opposite of that, Max, which you and I both know, is where John C. Maxwell talks about. It's a servanthood leader like Jesus Christ, where you put everybody ahead of you and you serve their interests. So I actually coined this phrase called the platinum rule. We all know what the golden rule is, right? Do unto others what you do unto yourself. But I coined a phrase called the platinum rule. And you say, what's the platinum rule? Well, I'll give you an example. Max, what's your favorite car? If I was going to spend $100,000 and buy you a car, what car would you like me to buy you?
I'll probably ask you to buy me the latest Porsche that you can buy for that price.
Okay. So here's the thing. Let's say I'm a Ferrari guy and you're a Lamborghini guy, but I'm buying the car for you. You don't have to pay anything. But I know you're a Lamborghini guy, but I give you a Ferrari. You're going to say thank you. You're going to be excited, but you're not going to be ecstatic because I didn't get you the Lamborghini, even though I had the money. So the platinum rule is, Max, I buy you the Lamborghini that you like, the color, the trim level, and wrap it in a bow. That's the platinum rule. See, that's leadership because see what a real leader does, they give you what you need, but they hold you accountable to the principles of leadership. That's the difference between then and now, and having been on this planet for 5.5 decades, I understand that through experience.
Absolutely. And experience is everything, isn't it?
Absolutely. Can I give you a quick anecdote? So there's a saying here. A young guy walks into a bar with $1 million and an old guy sits there with a bunch of experience and wisdom. The older guy walks out with the money and the wisdom, and the young guy leaves the bar broke.
Exactly. Yeah. Money change things so quickly. So we talked about your first venture, but you had another one more successful before the current one we'll get to in the moment. Can you talk to us about the Easy Pay venture in the financial services? How did you come up to be involved, and what was the success story there?
Sure. Hey, let me do this real quick. Let me just chime in a little bit about the cleaning business, because I just tapped this. So the cleaning business, I actually worked that business for 10.5 years, and I actually end up landing the second largest acrylic company in the world, which is called Ashland Chemical, and I end up servicing all of their plants in Northwest Chicago and Northeast Indiana for over 6 years. And what ended up leading me to the bill pay business was real simple. I had started doing, financial literacy. And every time I sat down with somebody, Max, that was in a lower income bracket and had a ton of credit problems and personal debt, I always saw them going to these cash pay places. And they were just getting broker and broker. And I was like, man, wow, aren't they smart enough just to go to a bank versus going to a cash play place, or a check now is what they call some of these places. So as I had been doing this for a while, I said, man, that is amazing business. But I had a conflict. I said, I can't justify having somebody give their money and pay usury to get checks, done when they can get that done for free from their bank. But I also couldn't ignore that industry as it was. So one day, I'm in church and I'm talking to my leader. His name is Roland. He's still one of my leaders right now today. And I was asking him about advice about mentoring my nephews, because I was about to get married. And I had been, mentoring my nephews, and my sister was divorced. And I had been mentoring my nephews for about 5-6 years, taking them to church, putting them in these tutoring programs so they can get their education. And then I met, the woman that I was going to marry, and I knew I couldn't spend that much time with them anymore. And so Roland said, hey, look, DJ, your nephews are now 10 and 13, and they've been with you for the past 5 years because I've seen you week in and week out, bring them here, teach them the cleaning business, put them in these programs, and now they know the difference between right and wrong. So they also should understand God has another pathway for you, but if they need you, they know where to find you. So what does that have to do with the bill pay business? Real simple, is that business is legal, is ethical, and is morally sound. Nobody was putting a gun to those people's head to pay usury. And why should I ignore if I could create a better mousetrap that actually would give people a better opportunity to get money at a lower price point? So when I started looking at that, Max, I said, well, hey, Western Union is in that business. They do very well. MoneyGram is in that business. They do very well. They don't charge usury, but they're in an analog model. What do I mean, ladies and gentlemen? You still had to go and to a counter and you had to fill out a money order and stuff like that to send money. What if I could put that on a kiosk and put it in 10 different languages and make the transactions in 90 seconds or less? Would that be a new solution to an old mousetrap? And yes, it was. And at that point, I was able, just like with my mentor and my leader, Roland, to say, hey, this is a good opportunity to help people, not to cause them, more financial problems. And this would be something I could live with, and my God would be okay with it. So I began to do research. I found a bank that would actually do the underwriting for the kiosk, and it was still ahead of its time because Google Pay, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay was not even an idea on the horizon in the next 5 years. So I began this back in 2006. And we actually start building kiosks for Chicago for the actual parking meters in Chicago. And we end up putting the kiosks in the airports, in the libraries, in the police stations. And at that point in time, I had a partner who was the majority owner in the municipality bill pay business. And he did not want to get into the retail business. So I said, the market is much bigger in the retail business. So I sold off my portion to him. I then found some developers. We created the software, and then I went into the bill pay business on the retail side. And by doing that, I had to raise money. So I found a great guy named Scott, and he was a very successful entrepreneur on the East Coast. And he said, hey, DJ, I'm going to give you 30 days. I want you to go out and get one contract, be it a protege or a project with one of the major grocery stores in your area. So our major grocery store was H-E-B and Fiesta. So I did not know anybody in the grocery business, Max, but he told me, if you can get a contract, I will finance you. So I remember my days in the cleaning business of canvassing, and I went out and started canvassing the stores, and I had one advantage that the grocery stores didn't have. I knew that H-E-B was an upscale grocery store and Fiesta was an urban. And I knew that H-E-B was going to create a new store called Joe V's to go after Fiesta's market. And I knew Fiesta was trying to elevate to H-E-B. So when I got the chance to get in touch with the CFO of both companies, I used the former approach to them, fear of missing out. I said, hey, Fiesta, do you know that H-E-B is about to start Joe V's and they're about to give me a trial opportunity? They said no. And then they did their research. They said, wait a minute, we want to be first in line, DJ. So they gave me a trial opportunity. So not getting one, I got two, Max. I get on the phone, I call Scott. I said, Scott, I got two trial opportunities for 90 days. Will you now finance me? And he surely did. And that's how we got into the Easy Pay. So I created the mantra and the name Easy Pay 24 because in essence, it basically meant that I could process a payment or pay a check and send it across the world in 90 seconds or less in 10 languages as well.
That's very impressive. And what you described there is all the essence now. A lot of people trying to raise money for their ideas, but in fact, you need to have something that is workable. You demonstrated that there is a potential market. You only had to find one client, and your investors were willing to back you up there. That story, I bet you utilize that again in your fundraising subsequently, didn't you?
Absolutely. And here's the one thing, and having been a student of businesses, what I did learn that I didn't learn in school, I actually read every entrepreneur's autobiography. I read Bill Walton's autobiography. I read Bill Gates. I read their autobiographies. I read Michael Dell's autobiography. And one thing I learned in there is the stuff you couldn't learn in school. Is one of the things that's important. Find a technology in an existing industry that can revolutionize it. Mm-hmm. And then back it with the hard data to prove to the number crunchers that this would work. And then there's another book that I read called The Roaring 2000s by Harry S. Dent Jr., who's a PhD. And he talked about the parallel between 1920s and 2000, how technology was going to be a disruptive force. And if you could find it, it goes through what they call S-curve economics. So what that basically means in early adoption phase, like the telephone, for instance, remember who used to be the number one telephone provider? It was Nokia, right? They had the sexy phone, then Motorola. But generally what happens, that technology is so expensive and is not completely usable for the masses. Only two people can afford it: entertainers and people who are wealthy beyond our imagination. So they can go and, have it and show it. and then they can go through the iterations of it getting better. And then in a 10% penetration, the general masses start to say, wow, we want that. And now in the next 3 to 5 years, it explodes and then it levels off. When I understood that in 1998, I used that principle, Max, in every business that I get into. I'd find the disruptive technology before anybody else. So the benefit of me jumping out without a plan is that I have to go find what works before anybody else can get there. So that's a gift that God gave me to make up for my stupidity of not having advisors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So now when I see something ahead before anybody else, I say, okay, this will work because of this. What do I mean, ladies and gentlemen? Look at Netflix. Look at Netflix. What is the, heir or the forefather to Netflix? The forefather to Netflix, believe it or not, is actually reel to reel. If you take reel to reel, then it became 8-track. If you take 8-track, 8-track became what? Cassette players. Cassette players became what? CDs. CDs became what?
DVDs,
Streaming.
and then streaming, yes.
You see my thing? So as I study history and the disruptive technology, I said, wait a minute. Netflix went to Blockbuster Video and offered them an opportunity to buy them, and Blockbuster Video said, wait a minute, we got 7,000 stores and you're Netflix? They laughed at them. So they kicked them on out. Netflix came back to them again and say, look, we're going to give you a chance. You're going to be a dinosaur. Didn't believe them. What happened? Never heard of Blockbuster Video people who are in their 20s. Everybody knows Netflix.
Absolutely.
And if you think that's something, look at Circuit City. Look at Best Buy. There's a great book called Built to Last, again, by Jim Collins. And he tells you how companies that were multi-billion-dollar companies who, through hubris and ego, ignored disruptive technologies and they become dinosaurs.
Absolutely. Yes. So I will come in a moment to the disruptive technology or ideas that you are building at the moment. But I want to go back to the financial literacy. And I think this is a very important work. Are you still doing it now? And what are the 3 things that you've learned teaching people about financial literacy?
Yes, I am still doing financial literacy. Have been doing financial literacy since 2002. And Max, I have actually personally sat down with over 45,000 people one-on-one or via Zoom since 2002. Here's the first thing that I learned that is apparent that we don't get in the school system. We don't teach our kids how to be adults financially. What do I mean? We'll teach them how to, swing a golf club. We'll teach them how to play a violin. I was literally last night at my young daughter's violin concert, but we don't teach them about basic economics. And in America, I'm sure it's the same thing in the UK. When I grew up, they actually had basic economic courses in high school and middle school. They took all of that out. So the first thing is everybody has to run a budget. Bill Gates runs a budget. Elon Musk runs a budget. So why don't you run a budget? That's the first thing, because that budget requires you to be accountable and have discipline. That's the first thing. Number 2, I also learned that it requires discipline and accountability. So what we created in our financial education system called the 7 spheres of money is called the 4x4. Number 1, you have to be disciplined, because if you don't discipline yourself, somebody else will, and it will not be a good outcome. I was not disciplined to quit my job prematurely. That was ignorance. So number 2, accountability. That means you have to be accountable to somebody that expresses or shows proof in their discipline to a system or principles that give success. Number 3, you have to have the ability to plug into a proven system of success. What is the example? When you went to university, you didn't question the courses they told you to take so you can get your finance degree, did you? You did whatever they told you. Why don't we do that in our personal finances? But we do it in the school systems, even when the school systems are teaching us a rote education. And then number 4 is you have to do the work. And what we tell people, Max, is 2 to 5 years. When you plug in discipline, accountability, plug in the right system, you have to do the work. 2 to 5 years, not 2 to 5 days, not 2 to 5 weeks, not 2 to 5 months, but 2 to 5 years. Since we live in a microwavable, nano, I gotta have it now, most people see people on these platforms and they see their success, but they don't know their backstory.
Yes.
And we got to do more of that. So that's what I've learned. The 3 things: budget, discipline, and having a system that you can plug into, and anybody can be successful financially.
Absolutely. And the reality is, I don't have any statistic, but I know anecdotally speaking to people, there are a lot of, as you described earlier, people in good job with good salaries, but they are struggling financially. They they're trying to have a certain lifestyle to match what they see out there. But if you look into the numbers, it's scary. And that also impacts their productivity back at work. And I've seen examples of that.
Exactly. We used to say in our classes when we teach open enrollments in corporate America, we say, hey, guess what? Your employee should not be worrying about their family and financial problems at work. And when they're at home, they shouldn't be worrying about work. So they have a conflict of interest. So if you can teach them about budgeting, discipline, and personal finance, guess what? You will now gain back hundreds of hours of productivity with your actual employee, in which now you see we're doing remote jobs and everything, because you really don't have to be at a job 8-10 hours a day. Is being productive. And one thing I love about, my dad was a Marine. It says in one of our commercials for the Marines, we get more done by 6 a.m. than people get done in a day. So which one is it? We say we want productivity, Max, not activity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And these days you're involved in some very exciting real estate projects in Zanzibar. Can you tell our audience where Zanzibar is and how did you get there?
That's a great question. The reason why I laugh is that in Chicago, we had a club called Club Zanzibar. And most people thought Zanzibar was a club. So apparently in the US, there's a couple of Zanzibar clubs across the country. So first thing, is not a club, everybody. The second thing, Zanzibar is a beautiful island that actually lies in the Indian Ocean, and it's on the east coast of Africa, and it is adjacent to Tanzania. And I would give you the comparison of, in America, Zanzibar would be Puerto Rico as it is to the United States of America. Or in the UK, I think it's called Ibiza, would be similar to Ibiza as it is to the UK. Okay, so I have a lineage that goes back to Cape Verde, which is about a 4.5-hour flight to Zanzibar, because I know my lineage. Thank goodness to my aunts and my grandparents. So about 10 years ago, we had started talking amongst the family. We're going to start making a pilgrimage to Cape Verde. And then we also said, we're going to jump over to Zanzibar because we understand Zanzibar is a great place to hang out. So to fast forward, summer of 2020, I was doing a speaking engagement in Atlanta with one of my partners on YouTube, and we talked about the trips we had taken. And then we said, hey, what's the next trip that we're going to take in the next 24 months? And we both said, hey, I'm going to get to Zanzibar. So fast forward, December 27th, 2021, I get a phone call about 11 o'clock at night, and it's my business partner, and says, hey, I'm going to Zanzibar. I said, really? He said, yeah, you know what? I've been so busy. I've been meaning to tell you this for the last 4 weeks, but I found this group and we're going to Zanzibar, and there's a couple of spots left. But the only problem is, DJ, you got to get the ticket now to pay for the package, and it's non-refundable, and it's going to be in the first week of February. I said, okay, send me the link. It's an $800 non-refundable. I don't have to ask anybody. I just get the link and tap on it. So I'm excited. And I actually said, hey, I'm going to take my older sister because she's always been great to me. So I hop on the phone, Max, and I call up my sister and I say, hey, Tish, I said, are you sitting down? She said, what's going on? I said, I'm taking you to Zanzibar. She said, what? Yeah, I said, I'm taking you to Zanzibar. So she's excited. Then she starts laughing. And I'm like, what are you laughing about? She said, well, you know RJ? I said, yeah, you know RJ, our friend, your friend for 20 years? She said, RJ's in Zanzibar right now. So Max, we hop on WhatsApp, and RJ sitting on the beach drinking some exotic drink in Zanzibar. So I'm really excited. I'm like, oh man, RJ, you in Zanzibar. And so I said, hey man, how long you been in Zanzibar? Oh, I've been here 30 days. I said, man, that's a long vacation. He said, oh, I'm not here on vacation, brother. I'm on here buying up land. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, they have a new foreign investors program that you can buy land and property in Zanzibar. And I'm down here with my college buddy, and we're buying up land and we're buying us a couple of houses. So immediately, my bucket list trip came a business trip. I said, well, tell me more. So RJ tells me the story. He says, hey, man, I can introduce you to this developer. And I actually hopped on a plane 2 weeks later, and I flew down to Zanzibar. I started looking at a house. And then from there, I ended up becoming a developer.
Very great story. So yes, Zanzibar, it's that very beautiful. I love that place. I haven't been myself. My sister was there last month actually, and she says so great stories about it and share all the pictures. Can you share what did you like when you were there, and how was it like being in Zanzibar?
Man, you know what? I have had multiple opportunities to go to Africa. My mom's been to Africa about 5 times on the western coast of Africa. And I have been around the world. I've been to Fiji, I've been to Australia, I've been to Bahamas, Jamaica, all of that good stuff. And I always had a great experience, Aruba and all that. But when I got to Africa, to Zanzibar, I immediately felt like I was away from home. And the only explanation I can give your audience is that you know where you belong, and immediately all the stress that I ever had. I mean, and again, I've gone to some great places, but in Zanzibar, for some reason, I felt like a new person with no worries, no stress, anything. That was the first thing that I experienced. The second thing that I experienced was that I couldn't imagine how warm the water was, because I've been to a lot of exotic places, and the water, depending on the season, was not always warm. The water in Zanzibar literally is like 70-degree temperature all year round. And I'm a water guy. So I was just in love with the water, and the water is beautiful beyond explanation. The third thing is that I saw an opportunity that nobody else saw. And again, this was from my past experiences. And here's the connector, really why I did business in Zanzibar. In 2017, Max, I had been taking a lot of trips to Mexico. And I was invited, because I was a VIP of this travel club, to a hotel that was called Hotel Iscarre. And I love this hotel. It was the first hotel that was all inclusive, but it also included everything, the excursions, the transportation, all for one price. No other all-inclusive place does that. So I experienced Hotel Iscarre on my 50th birthday, and I went back the following year, and I stayed twice as long, and I spent over $10,000. And then I connected with the CIO because, again, light bulb. I'm an entrepreneur. I said, hey, nobody knows about this resort. How do I invest? So they say, hey, DJ, you got to be an accredited investor. Check that box. Hey, DJ, you got to have $100,000. Check that box. So we're filling out the paperwork and everything. They said, okay, one last thing. This hotel is owned by the government and a private hedge fund company out of Mexico. In order for you to actually invest, you have to have citizenship. I didn't have citizenship, Max. I could have went through the process, which had been like 6-12 months, but I'm not a patient guy. I'll be honest. So I basically said, wow, I'm just going to miss out on this opportunity. That's 2018. Fast forward to 2021. I still have the videos and all the great stuff about Hotel Escarre. I said, you know what? God said, hey, DJ, I'm going to show you the future. What you think is a setback is a setup for success, because you're going to build an ecosystem in Zanzibar from a bucket list sliver opportunity. So as soon as I got on Zanzibar's land and I realized that the dollar rate, you and I finance guys, $1, one pound is equivalent to 2,700 of theirs. And then it was over, because I had the blueprint. I had already sat down with the Hotel Escarre executives. I saw everything they were doing well. Nobody knew about Hotel Escarre, but today Hotel Escarre is over a $2 billion enterprise. I said, you know what? We can build this here in Zanzibar. That's how
Very.
you connect the dots.
That's a business mind talking. And I mean, Zanzibar is described, and to be honest, all that east coast of Africa and many places in Africa very growing for business. And what potential do you see in the region, and why do you believe now is the right time for investment in Africa in general and in Zanzibar in particular?
Well, here's the thing. If you understood that I say I am an avid reader. So my development partner, when I went over there the first time in February, I said, hey man, you uprooted your family and you came and put roots here in Zanzibar 10 years ago. Why did you do that? He said, because I read this case study, Africa Rising, and it told me that there's 4 levels of growth that are going to happen in Africa and as well in Eastern Africa that nobody knows about right now. Immediately, Max, I went right back to Good to Great.
Mm-hmm.
And Good to Great has in chapter 5 called the hedgehog concept. Number 1, what is your talent or your ambition? Number 2, what is the niche that you can actually do better than anybody in a saturated market? And number 3, how do you get people in front of you? How do you get them to know about you? I said, wow, that is Good to Great. So I read the book and it tells me that the eastern coast of Africa alone over the next 20 years is going to have billions of people that their age is average 19. So again, I tap back into history. Okay, what has made any country a prominent financial dominant country? Upper middle class. Okay, what do you mean, DJ? How did America become America that everybody wanted to be? Well, we have to go back to the history of World War II. And World War II happened, a lot of the young men went off to war, and then they got the benefit of the GI Bill, and the GI Bill helped create middle-class America, and that created consumerism because the women stayed at home. They made 85% of all the decisions in the household. So everything consumable that you can do was done through the middle class. Now, go to China. Same thing. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, what happened? A upheaval of middle class prominence and growth. Now you say, okay, that's 2. Well, I'll give you a 3rd one. We in America put the fiber optics underneath the ocean into India, and we created call centers. What does India have? They have been booming in the call center and accounting business for over 25 years, and their middle class consumerism made them the power they are, i.e. Africa. Average age of a person in Africa right now on the East Coast, 19 years of age. They got 30 years of growth in the middle class. And if you're a smart business person, you see the history and know the technology and you get there first, like Wayne Gretzky said, the best hockey player to ever play. He said, Wayne, you're not the biggest guy. You're not the fastest guy. You're not even the strongest guy. He said, what's your secret? He said, you know what, Max? I get to where the puck is going before anybody else. And that's what Zanzibar is. So here's what Zanzibar offers people. Zanzibar is only a 20-minute flight to Mount Kilimanjaro, the largest peak in Africa. Zanzibar is only a 25-minute flight to the Serengeti, the most beautiful wildlife destination on the planet. And Zanzibar is only an hour flight to Kenya, Nairobi, one of the mega cities booming in the whole world. And it's a 5-hour flight to Dubai, and Dubai runs the authority airports in Zanzibar. So having done all my research, Max, I'm excited because I've got the trifecta, and all I had to do is get there first, show them a proven plan, Hotel Skyray, show them the economy that's on the uprise, and say, hey, how do we make this work and build infrastructure? That's what we're doing. And that's what we're excited about. So if you don't understand economics, one, your pound can get 2,900 of their dollars. My US dollar can get 2,700 of theirs. And their economy is going to be on an uptick for the next 30 years. Then here's what my grandfather told me, Max. He said, your wood is wet. And he said, what is wet wood? Wet wood sinks, baby. Welcome to the Black Travel Go Summit. I'm DJ the Money Coach, and I want to invite you to my amazing brand new Zanzibar resort in Tanzania. That's right, 7 days, 6 nights, all transportation, all festivities, pampered chefs, excursions, and beautiful sunsets, and all for only $9.99 or 3 easy installments exclusively for Flight Travel Go. Come join us on the Features in the World Club with DJ the Money Coach.
I see you are really excited and pumped up about Zanzibar, investing in Africa. You know, I talked a lot about people trying to attract investment on the continent. Although it has increased significantly over the past few years, there's still a lot of dollars out there. And that has been my experience ever since I moved out of the Ivory Coast and lived in different places in Europe. I'm always staggered people putting their savings into savings account that pays 1-2%, where you could make.
You mean the savings account that gives them less than inflation?
It's just bugs my mind that I'm like, I could give you so much more returns, in Africa, but how do you convince them that they can trust you, invest their money there, when the only story that they heard about Africa is that little place, which is not true on the map, and is only place where you have famines, you have insecurity, and it's not the place to put your money. How do you convince people to trust you with their hard-earned dollars for you to invest in Zanzibar?
Great question. Here's the thing, track record. Why do people give Elon Musk money? Why did they give him money to buy, Twitter? Why did they give him money to start SpaceX? Why did they give him money to buy Tesla? He didn't create Tesla, but he has a track record going back to what? He's one of the PayPal guys. So the track record that Elon Musk has allows people to invest with him, even when the propaganda of misinformation is telling them the opposite. So for us, again, I started in the financial literacy business in 2002. Mm-hmm. I'm still in the financial literacy business as a businessman, djthemoneycoach.com. So I have built a tribe or ecosystem that we have had successes. So I go back and say, remember my first company, White Glove Immaculate Services, 7-figure company. My second company, 7-figure company. Easy Pay, Bill Pay, 7-figure company. You see my track record. So those people that have been with me that I've won with, not the general masses that don't know me, it's the ones that I have built community with and made some, returns that are significant and true. And the external people, they start to sit back and they say, wow, what if this can happen? And then I just show them common sense. Just like you said, I sit down with them and I say, look, here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. Your 401k, your 403b, your super annuity, all of that. I said, so you trust people you never met. They lock up your money. And when the market's down, they tell you to be patient, and you're patient with them because you got no other options. I said, so why don't we do this? I said, why don't you check my track record, see who I've worked with, and let's say 5% of your disposable investment dollars you entrust with us for a short period of time, and let's see which one turns out better. And I said, here's the best thing about it. You're investing in paper assets which have no collateral to them, technically. I'm going to put you in an investment with a hard, real asset that you can actually get leverage and get money to be borrowed against it. So what is the loss? 5%. So I educate the market. I have a target market I only work with, Max. We work with professional middle class. What does that mean? If you're single, you make $75,000 a year. You have a net worth of about $250,000. If you're married, significant other, you have a $250,000 household income, and you have a net worth between $500,000 to $5 million. So I'm not dealing with the people that are struggling. I'm dealing with successful professionals that don't have sophisticated financial literacy like you and I, and they're not accredited investors, but they are on paper, but they're not in the business. Remember I said Barbara Walters, she sat down with people making $100,000, $200,000. Me, I was making good income, but I was financially illiterate. So I sit down with them, Max, educate them and I say, look, let's put your 5% that you have over here in that negligible savings account that has no assets back behind it. And let's put 5% over here with mine that actually have a physical asset. Here's the great thing, Max. Everything we're doing in Zanzibar, I own 100%. No debt, no loans, anything. So I can hold or I can cash out at my leisure. So then I educate them and I say, hey, why don't we just look at the market right now? What's happening in the market? We're in a recession. What are you getting on your returns? What is the stock market doing that you're not paying attention to? It is down for most people. And that's how I challenge them. And when I challenge them, reality steps in and I say, hey, if you can afford to put your money over here with a negligible return, you can't get anything collateralized against it, why don't you take a shot with us? But look at my track record and see how that works. And that's how I go about educating them first and then showing them that we have a better mousetrap.
Very good. And we need a lot of people like you doing that at scale across the continent. People listening to us today, if they want to get involved, how do they reach out to you? How do they get involved into the Zanzibar project?
Oh, beautiful. So twice a month, we do an actual presentation for actual, qualified investors. So they can reach us a couple of different ways, Max. They, believe it or not, I still communicate with people in the analog world as well. They can reach us at 1-866-395-3042. That's a toll-free 24/7 hotline, 1-866-395-3042. They can reach me on all platforms, YouTube at DJ The Money Coach. They can reach me on my website, djthemoneycoach.com. They can reach me at IG at DJ The Money Coach, and we will send them a little 4-question that basically asks them, what's their income? Do they own assets? Do they have a cash flow need or appreciation need? And then if they meet those 4 qualifying questions, we then invite them to an exclusive presentation on a Monday or Saturday, just twice a month.
Very good. Thank you. And we'll put that in the notes of the meeting, and we'll come back to that again at the end of the recording. But I thought it was very important at this stage that people know and reach out to you. And I look forward to also working with you, DJ. That sounds really exciting. And you come across like someone who is always looking for the new things, the new angle. You worked on cleaning companies, you worked in financial services, now you are real estate, and doing your training around financial literacy. What would you say is your approach to innovation? And what can you share with leaders listening to us about innovation?
Well, for me, Max, innovation has to give you better quality of life. That's the first thing. Because the number one commodity that we can't get back is our time. And for me now, being on this planet for 5.5 decades, I value my time over everything. So when I look at technology, it has to be disruptive in the fact that it gives me my time back and give me a better quality of life. I don't look at it from an aspect of money. I look at it from time and quality of life. I'm a father of 4 children, and only thing I would ever want if I could change time and go back to the past is get one day with my father. So that technology has to offer me that first and foremost. So AI has the ability to offer people that because it does menial jobs and gives you back your life. So when I'm looking at the technology, I look at it from time and quality of life, not money. The money will come. The second thing is it a disruptive technology that eventually everybody's going to have to use? That's the thing that people miss. And that's what I learned from the roaring 2000s and S-curve economics. In saturated markets, there's always a new technology to make things better. In the financial industry, it has happened. In the medical industry, it has happened. And then we don't realize that becomes the norm. And that's one of the advantages of being a serial entrepreneur, and having started my entrepreneur life in my early 20s, is that I've seen almost everything under the sun, and I've seen the impact that those technologies give time and quality of life so that we can be better human beings. So that's really what I look for when it comes to technology. And it has to be disruptive, and you have to have the courage to ride through the uneducated people and the general masses to when it's going to become the staple in our lives daily. And that's generally going to take about 5 to 7 years at the end of the day. And you have to have the ability to take that calculated risk, and you have to have the ability to actually put the money that you don't need. That's one thing I could go back to when you're talking about is tell people about, hey, only invest what you can afford to lose. What do I mean? If I invest what I have and it all goes to heck in a rowboat, can I still live the life that I currently have? Yes. If the answer is no, keep your money in your pocket, keep it in that negligible savings account. That is
Yeah,
the rule of thumb that you should use.
absolutely. Absolutely. Then in terms of technology innovation, what do you tell people who are worried about AI?
Well, I tell them, why be afraid? Real simple. Guess what? You and I can walk outside and get ran over by a car. You know, a lot of people, again, misinformation. First things first, do your own research.
Mm-hmm.
See, we're so used to people telling us how to think and what to think. How about open up a book and do some research on your own? That's the first thing. If you do that, a lot of this misinformation will actually be non-existent in your life because you did the research. If
Yeah.
one thing I can tell you is most important for me is believing in myself. That's
Mm-hmm.
the most. And how do you believe in yourself? By being a student. You become a student, your natural confidence raises up and you see things and believe in yourself more than everybody else. So you don't listen to the naysayers. And then when somebody tells you a technology you should be afraid of, you should say, okay, is that really true? Did I do my research? Here's the one thing that my pastor taught me. He says 3 things I want you to take from me, DJ. He said, I don't ever want you to take my advice. He said, make sure everything that you do is meaningful, measurable, and manageable based on your comprehension of the same book that you and I read. Don't take my personality. So with somebody who's afraid of technology and afraid of the future, that tells me they're not doing the research. And that tells me they're listening to the white noise and they are not a true leader of themselves. You know what they're saying is, hey, a man who stands for anything will fall for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. What role does mindset play in your entrepreneurial journey, in your life in general?
Well, first and foremost, here's what I always tell my children. 3 things. First, be one with God. The second thing is you are a winner. What is a winner? A winner is a person that does the right things legally, morally, and ethically sound to win in life to help people. Number 2, be a leader. What is a leader? A leader is a person who makes the right decisions in tough times and lean on principles, not popularity. And then number 3, Max, be a shepherd. A shepherd is a person who takes care of the less fortunate people. So you have to have that mindset because these 6 inches between your ears is the most important real estate in your life. So that is the most important thing. And speak what you want because that's what God says in BK1. Speak into existence what my game plan is for you, and I will give it unto you. That's the important thing. That's the mindset that you have to have. And we all have bad days. We may lose a parent. We may lose something very important to us. But understand this. You can control your narrative. Only you can stop you from being successful.
Mm-hmm.
That's the mindset you have to have.
Absolutely. How important is faith for you?
Oh, it's number one. Number one. I'm not here without God. That's pure and simple. We've gotten away from that. But hey, the reality is there's somebody bigger than you. You can't explain some of the things that are created. Can you explain the hummingbird?
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Can you explain, the speed of sound? Think about it. Can you explain gravity? No. So I have gotten to a point, the older you get, the more you understand you're not the only one that created this existence and you know less than what you thought you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, DJ, we could be talking forever and ever. Unfortunately, we are starting to get to the end of our conversation today. And we've got a tradition in this podcast. We've got 3 questions that I like to ask to
Sure.
conclude the show. First one is, what are 3 books you recommend to our audience today?
All right. Well, you don't mind if I I'm going to give 2 books and I'm going to plug myself. So the first book that I would recommend that people read whatever the book you believe in your God. If it's the Bible, the Torah, or something of that nature, read that first. Me personally, Max, I get up every day, I read Proverbs and of the day. So today is the 24th of October. So I read Proverbs 24 and then I pray on it. So that's the first book I read. The second book I would encourage you to read from leadership, read the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. You can't go wrong with that. The third book would be The Great by Jim Collins. And 3A would be, this one right here, The ABCs of Wealth, A Common Sense Strategy of Achieving the American Dream by yours truly, DJ the Money Coach.
Very good. I absolutely recommend everybody reading that. Can you tell us a bit more about the book? What are the key lessons in the book that you share?
Oh, absolutely. So in the ABCs, the wealth, what I did is I took my 20-year track record and I showed through each letter the actual lesson that I actually lived through when I actually sat down at the time with 25,000 people and showed people exactly what I did. I didn't make stuff up. I actually went back and I record everything I've done. So in every letter, there is a lesson that literally happened to me and with people that I work with. So you can actually go to a chapter. And what Susie Orman did for me, let's say that you are lacking the ability to know how to network, because network is important to grow a business. So I actually have a chapter called Form. And what does form mean? It means family, occupation, recreation, message, or money. So how do you make somebody a quick friend of yours, Max? First thing you do is talk to them about their family. Hey, Max, I see you're married. How long you been married? Are you happily married? Shut your mouth. You know what'll happen? They'll start sharing with you. And then when you share with them, hey, I'm a parent of 4. My daughter just played the violin. I'm excited. Now you're building a bridge with them. What's your occupation? Most people, their personalities and their character come through their job, unfortunately. So if I ask you, hey, what's your occupation? You're going to tell me what you love about it, or you're going to tell me what you hate about it. I take a mental note of that. And then R, here's the best one. What do you like to do for fun? What's your recreation? What's your hobby? Me, I like baseball. I like hiking. I like swimming. So now we're connecting the dots. And then I get to the M. What's your message? What is your philosophy in life? And now they tell me, and then I take that information, Max, and I write it down on a card, and I take a picture with them, and I send it to them, and I say, hey, how's your daughter doing? How's your wife doing? How's your grandmother doing? Before I try to engage anything with business. And guess what? Now I'm their best friend in 5 minutes, and they want me to be around because I'm talking about their most important topic, them and their family. So that's a chapter in my book. It's just that simple. And then I tell them about the 7 spheres of money. What are the most important bookends to your finances? It's from the beginning of life to the end of life. And I show them how to put those all together and show them how to find the people to work with.
Yeah, indeed. So DJ, your dad died at 19, you shared. You also shared that at 19 you got kicked out of college and kicked out of your house by your parents. If you were to go back to your 19 years old self, what advice would you give DJ at 19?
First thing I would give advice is humility. I would tell myself, you know what? Hey, be grateful for what you have. You're not starving. You got a loving mother who has a loving husband. They're providing you with an upper middle class life. You ought to be grateful for that. That's the first thing. Second thing is, DJ, nobody owes you nothing. Even though your father passed away in Vietnam, you are owed nothing by this world. Nobody cares about you except for your family. So be grateful and know that you have to earn what you have. And the third thing is, be a servant. Don't be a selfish person. Be an unselfish person, because those are the biggest things with my personal roadblocks. I have a best friend named Ed, and we call him Big E. He used to always tell me, Max, he said, hey, DJ, your biggest problem is you can't get out of the way of yourself. God bless you with a lot of talents and gifts that he bestowed for you because your dad died at a young age, but you're too arrogant and too selfish and too angry that you won't allow God to bless you. That's what I would tell me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we covered a lot of ground today, and yet I'm sure there's something that we could have covered as well. And one question I like to ask guests is, what is one question you wish I'd asked you today, and how would you have answered it?
Well, I think one question I wish you would ask me is, what is Wi-Fi? And Wi-Fi is, what is financial independence? Because we are all in a world, Max, that people, no matter what money they make, they're all in financial challenges, but they want the lifestyle that's projected on the television. But until you actually know how to take your reoccurring expenses and match them up with passive income through business, real estate, and leveraging the tax laws, you're never going to be financially independent because you don't understand it in the first place. That's one question I would ask that you would have asked me.
Absolutely. So if I come to you and say, DJ, I would like to be financially independent, what step can I take? And how quickly can you get me independent? Because that's what people think. That's
absolutely. So quickly. First thing I say to him, I said, have you ever been to the doctor? Yes. You tell the doctor you got an ailing stomach and you tell him just give me some Tylenol. Will the doctor do that? No, the doctor's going to say, first thing we're going to do a physical on you. So the first thing I'm going to do is say, you know what? I'm going to do a financial analytical physical on you and your money and your mindset. Once we do that, I'm then going to find out who you are and show you step by step how to get to that pathway and give you a realistic framework of 2 to 5 years to accomplish it. And if you do those things, Max, you can be successful 100%. That's the key. But see, what normally happens, people in the financial world, they just want to sell you something and they want to make it one shoe fits everybody. I don't do that. I do it one person at a time, but I make you look in the mirror and say, here's the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not jive thyself. Don't look in the mirror. The worst person you can lie to is yourself. So I will first stop you, analyze you, get you squared up, get you debt free, and then show you how to become financially independent. And then you'll love yourself and you'll love the progress of the journey.
Very good. Look, DJ, and I know we touched on it earlier already, but can you share again where people can reach out to you, how people can get in touch to continue the conversation we just had today?
Absolutely. For all you analog people, you can reach us at 866-395-3042, 866-395-3042, and you can reach me around the world at that number 24/7, 365. The second way you can reach me is djthemoneycoach.com. The third way you can reach me is at DJ the Money Coach on IG, and I actually have a YouTube channel. And if you like to travel to Zanzibar, you can actually go to our website, escapetozanzibar.com, and we will take great care of you. And just for your group, Max, I have a special for them right now. We're going to give your group a chance to go to Zanzibar for 7 days, 6 nights for only $497 US. That's excluding airfare, and that's good for your group to the end of the month, my friend.
Very good. Thank you so much, DJ, and thank you for your generosity.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for having me on your show. I love to come back. This was an amazing time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Black Travel Go Summit. I'm DJ the Money Coach, and I want to invite you to my amazing brand new Zanzibar resort in Tanzania. That's right, 7 days, 6 nights, all transportation, all festivities, pampered chefs, excursions, and beautiful sunsets, and all for only $9.99 or 3 easy installments exclusively at Black Travel Go. Come join us on the Beaches in the World Club with DJ the Money Coach.
This was the Max Yao Leadership Podcast. Thank you for joining us. To listen to future episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Until next time, keep being the leader everybody trusts and respects.